Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. I did a video on this regarding an article that was on The Independent that essentially took the Washington Post article and regurgitated it. I also wanted to read the Washington Post article because it is equally stupid. And what I mean here is that, these people, I'm not going to say they're not smart. Of course, they're smart people, but they lack the ability to do the deep dive research on the topic. And so it is riddled with holes, and it has two very distinct consequences. One, it turns the American people against the veteran. And two, it creates an environment for the what I call the veteran sphere. There's there's more veterans than not. More veterans than not. More veterans are not connected to VA disability compensation. Okay. So there's more veterans out there not connected to VA compensation. And if they read something like this, they think to themselves, well, I just don't even rate, so I'm not even going to bother. Meanwhile, they probably do. So this stuff is super dangerous to put out when you do not have the wherewithal to actually share it appropriately or correctly. So let's jump through it here. Military veterans out there, right? So it says here, the Washington Post, how some veterans exploit $193 billion VA program due to lax controls. Anybody who's filed a claim through the VA understands that it is got many hurdles and controls in place to go through, and it is actually difficult to navigate. Therefore, you need help from, ideally, an accredited veteran service officer or veteran service representative. Now, look, if you can't find one, we're happy to help you as well. Being a former accredited veteran service officer, created a team. We have folks that worked at the VA, former VA rater, all kinds of stuff on our team here to help you. Evidence-based VA claims will help you get the rating that you deserve. It's that simple. Go ahead and email us for a free consultation. Let's jump into this. It says here by Craig Whitlock, Lisa Rain, and Caitlin Gilbert. These are the three that we can thank for this horrendous article. All right, October 6th, 2025. Military veterans are swamping the U.S. government with dubious disability claims, including cases of brazen fraud totaling tens of millions of dollars that are exploiting the country's sacred commitment to compensate those harmed in the line of duty, according to a Washington Post investigation. All right, so first of all, they're talking about, when they say $193 billion VA program, what they're talking about is the VA disability compensation program. Okay. So the first error here is that it is not set up for those harmed in the line of duty. If you're saying in the line of duty in the context of, well, in their minds, in the line of duty in their minds means combat related. In the line of duty in reality is you joined, you got out, active duty this time. That is all in the line of duty. Essentially, you are owned 100% by the military. So that's a funny kind of description, the line of duty. So let's move on. Taxpayers will spend roughly $193 billion this year for the Department of Veterans Affairs to compensate about 6.9 million disabled veterans on the presumption that their ability to work is impaired. VA officials say most veterans' disability claims are legitimate, and I agree. The vast majority are legitimate. Now, 6.9 million of however many veterans are out there, you get different numbers, different places, 17, 18 million probably at the high of veterans, right? So around a third, a little more than a third of veterans receiving disability compensation. Honestly, I think that number should be north of 50% for sure, probably north of 60% or even 70%. Would not be alarming in my mind, again, coming from the viewpoint of a former accredited veteran service officer and worked in different committees and commissions and boards and so forth. I see that as a very true possibility. So this is normal. This is what we should be seeing. Yet the Post found that millions of the claims are for minor or treatable afflictions that rarely hinder employment. Okay, so they're going to throw out the same things as the other organization did, which this is where they got it from. The hair loss, jock itch, and toenail fungus, as though these are conditions in which you would want. Okay, so hair loss, guess what? It's not male pattern baldness. It's alopecia, specifically. Two types, the regular type of alopecia or scarring alopecia. And most likely, if you have alopecia, regular alopecia, and you've lost all of your hair on your head and your face, and it's never coming back, you get a 0% rating. If you've lost all the hair on your entire body, you get a 10% rating. And, oh, by the way, it has to be service connectable. You have to prove to the VA that your alopecia resulted from your time in service. Now, there's scarring alopecia, which sounds wonderful. And if you are if you've lost 20% or less on your scalp, I think you can get a 10% rating. So good for you. Great. Scarring on your scalp and 20% hair loss, and you get a 10% rating. And oh, by the way, you have to prove it's service connectable. So the jock itch has to be, in order to be, I think, at least a 10%, it has to be approximately 20% of your body has to be covered in this fungus that we're calling jock itch. Toenail fungus, in order to get a 20% rating, I believe, you have to have a very severe, it could be a 30%, 20 or 30, very severe fungus affecting multiple toenails and or disfigurement. And oh, by the way, it has to be proven that it is connected to your time in service. Just saying, you have to prove that your condition manifested during your time in service, is a result of your time in service, was worsened by your time in service, or is a result of another condition that you have, meaning a secondary condition. About 556,000 veterans received disability benefits for eczema, 332,000 for hemorrhoids, 110,000 for benign skin growths, 81,000 for acne, and 74,000 for varicose veins. The most recently available figures from the VA show. Again, for each one of those things that are listed, the burden is on you as the veteran. The VA will do zero help for you, zero. You must prove to the VA that your whatever condition is service-related in some fashion. With proof. You can't just say it. In contrast, far fewer veterans receive compensation for certain combat-related injuries. About 10,900 service members who have suffered severe or penetrating brain injuries since 2000 are eligible for benefits. Fewer than 1,700 receive disability payments for losing limbs during the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Well, guess what? There's more than just loss of limb conditions that are service connectable. And oh, by the way, what they're leaning on here is combat related. So I love this because guess what else is considered combat related? For a Vietnam veteran, for example, diabetes or hypertension. Those can strongly be said combat related. Why? Because they're presumptive conditions for Agent Orange exposure. Doesn't mean that it had to have happened then. You didn't need to lose a leg in that moment. You could have ended up down the road developing hypertension or diabetes, and now you are service connected through that through presumptive conditions. The other would be, let's say, chronic rhinitis or sinusitis, right? For burn pit exposure for Gulf Wars. Combat related, right? Presumptive conditions. The VA has presumed that it is more than likely that your condition of chronic rhinitis or sinusitis is in fact due to your time in service overseas, surrounded by burn pits. So it's not just about these types of conditions. They pick and choose what they want to say to highlight, and then they make an argument around it that has 1,000 holes in it for anybody who understands. Unfortunately, most people do not understand, and they take it at face value. And it is a dangerous, dangerous, slippery slope, and shame on the Washington Post and those three individuals for posting this without having direct communication with somebody directly from the VA, maybe somebody who's been an accredited representative, maybe somebody who has some sort of authority to speak on the subject. All right, moving on. The Post analyzed 25 years of government data on disability claims and sued VA and the Justice Department under the Freedom of Information Act, forcing the agencies to disclose thousands of pages of internal records and dozens of surveillance videos. The Post also interviewed scores of current and former U.S. officials and visited military bases around the country to speak with veterans. The investigation exposed an increasingly costly disability program prone to rampant exaggeration and fraud, which makes it harder for veterans with legitimate claims to get their benefits processed. Bipartisan political indifference and a weak array of checks and balances have compounded the dysfunction. Okay, so I don't know if it's maybe it does make it harder for everybody else if somebody goes through with fraudulent claims, right? So what happens is somebody puts in fraudulent claim, let's say that they get found, right, eventually, and all that comes crashing down. What should happen is the VA should go back and go, okay, is there a way that we could have had a checks and balances somewhere along the way to ensure this didn't happen? If there is, then we need to implement that for all, which then creates another hurdle, if you will, going through the process. Fine, I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with saying it could make it harder, kind of. But if you, in my opinion, have the appropriate information, the appropriate evidence, the proof that you need, you work with your doctor, all of that good stuff, you go to your C&P exam, you give the VA everything that they need, they should be able to figure out your claim fairly quickly. All right, moving on. Veterans advocates, for-profit companies, and VA itself encourage vets to file as many VA claims as possible to milk the system. Not true. Not to milk the system, okay? There are many veterans out there who leave themselves short of what, you may ask? The benefits in which they've earned. Earned is a big word, okay? I know, it's huge. Earned. They've earned through their time in service. It's part of their benefits package, if you will, okay? You signed up into the military with a blank check payable up till death. And you said, look, I'll go wherever you need me to go. I'll do whatever you need me to do. I will do my duty as a member of whatever branch. And as a result, I'm going to get paid drastically low, severely lower than my civilian counterpart. But I understand that at the end, I have a tremendous benefits package that will take care of me with any conditions that I develop during my time in service, that are caused by my time in service, manifest during my time in service, are connected to a condition that is due to my time in service via secondary conditions, right? So I've earned this. This is part of my benefits package. So if somebody at the Washington Post, for example, has a benefits package that allows them some sort of monetary benefit, whatever it may be, and then they leave. Let's say they could get some sort of a retirement or something from Washington Post. I don't even know. But let's just pretend. And after your time, you get out and they go, okay, hey, don't forget to sign this paper so you can get your monetary benefit, retirement, whatever it is, from the Washington Post. I guarantee you, every single person would say, oh yeah, let me sign that. Here's my direct deposit. Okay? This is no different. This is part of our benefits plan for serving our country. And you're welcome. You should thank the veteran community, every single one of them, for their time in service that allow you to write whatever you want to write. Because if it weren't for veterans, there would be no Washington Post. There would be no country. There would be none of it. All right, let's move on. Yes, veterans advocates, for-profits, companies, and VA itself encourage vets to file as many claims as possible, but not, in my opinion, to milk the system. It's to get what you deserve, to be properly rated. If that rating is a 30%, it's a 30%. If it's a 50, it's a 50. If it's 100, it's 100. If it's SMC, it's SMC. File for anything you have that is coming to you. Moving on. Critically, VA has failed to update antiquated rules that provide outsized benefits for some easily manageable ailments. For instance, VA typically pays veterans diagnosed with sleep apnea, a common breathing disorder, more than a combat vet with a leg amputated below the knee. Except for the fact that if a combat vet with a leg amputated below the knee probably has PTSD, by the way, and and due to the PTSD may actually have sleep apnea. Go figure, right? So you have all of these compounds, right, that compound into it. It's quite realistic that that person, combat vet, could be receiving aid and attendance and other sorts of benefits from the VA. So it's just funny to me how they pick and choose exactly what they want to, the arguments they want to take, and they use very, very funny, antiquated examples